Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education, and I'm your host, Tim Bogatz. Welcome to the show. I am so glad that you're here, and I am so excited for our conversation today with Chris Hodge. Hodge is a high school art teacher from the Chicago suburbs. He's been teaching for a long time across a lot of different mediums when it comes to art. And I also want to talk to Hodge about his own art practice because he is a very dedicated working artist, and he's got some incredible drawings there. They're intricate, detail-driven, just ink drawings that are really, really fun to look at, tell some great stories. And he's somebody who you can just tell has been making art for his entire life. And I think that dedication to his craft really informs the way he teaches. So I want to talk to him about, his own work and how that affects his own teaching. Hey, but I also want to talk to him about his upcoming presentation at the Art Ed Now conference, which is coming in just a couple of weeks. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But he has a presentation coming called Why Art is the Most Important Class. And I think that's really, really a message that we need to think about going into this next school year. So he's going to give us a preview of his upcoming presentation. And I think his argument about why art is the most important class is a compelling one. He's talking about how art has the lowest entry point of any discipline when it comes to creative thinking. And more importantly, that creative thinking and the creativity that students build in the art room is the foundation that they will need to succeed in every other subject. And that's a refreshing perspective to hear, and I think it's a good advocacy piece. And I'm hoping that it will give teachers kind of a new language for talking about why what we do in the art room matters so much. So excited to hear from Hodge on all of that. He's ready to go. Let me bring him on and let me get this conversation started. Okay, Chris Hodge is joining me now. Hodge, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, Tim. I just came back from Tennessee, and I'm enjoying this hot summer weather.
Yes, it is. It's been kind of hot for everybody here, unfortunately. But I am excited. Well, I mean, summer is always good. I'm glad you get vacation time with that. But excited to have you at the Art Ed Now conference pretty soon. But people have loved your presentations in the past. But before we dive into anything there, I would love for you to just kind of give us an introduction. Like, what can you tell us about yourself? What can you tell us about your teaching?
Oh yeah, well, I've been teaching for quite a long time now. I keep saying more than 20 years. It's getting to be close to 25 now. So I'm
Okay.
probably not going to get specific going forward, but I've been teaching at the high school level, lots of different subjects, from art subjects, from photo to drawing and ceramics and jewelry and even film and video, which was a fun little excursion for a bit. But yeah, just lots of different courses, which is nice because it does allow you to kind of see the connections between the different courses and really really think about what you value in your teaching. And if I was going to say what I value most in the classroom, without getting specific to techniques and whatnot where you're teaching or managing the class, I do value creativity, making sure that assignments are thoughtful, give choice for students to do their own thing, something that they can buy
Yeah.
into. I guess choice would be another one of those things that I value, where you
Right.
can. Like I think I know I have some friends that are very passionate about choice-based education, and I totally agree. I mean, I think that's ideal, but it's also a lot of work to provide choices for students. I know that sounds, I mean, if you have to like set up all these different medias for the kids to
Yeah, I
explore.
was gonna say if you're doing it right, it can be a lot of work if you're really valuing the what goes into choices, like it can be a lot of work on the teacher.
Because you're working with so many different directions at one time. But I think it's better. I think that ideally, where I can, I want to involve as much choice as I can in the students' learning, and then like I think really like having the students explore. Like I don't know how to put this. It's like if you can get them to really care about what they're doing so that they're asking you questions versus me like just telling them all the things
Hmm.
to do. I think
Yes.
that's gonna go better for you. It's hard though. That's tough to get the kids to really want to explore and dig in and discover things and try to figure things out. But I think that's like ideal, and if they're proud of what they're doing and they're happy with what they're doing, they're going to be moving forward in their art making in a much more effective way.
Okay, also wanted to ask you, Hodge, about your own art. I know you're a prolific artist. You do all sorts of different things, and we've been talking about that a lot over the past few weeks on the podcast here. And so, before we get into the nitty-gritty of what you make and how you find time to create, I'd love to know just sort of a big picture view about what you make, what you create, what your style is. Like, what can you tell people about your own art making?
That's a great question. You know, like where it comes to like theme and style, I had someone tell me that I create obsessive narratives, which I found to be really
Okay.
interesting. And
Yeah.
I agree. Like that is kind of what I do. Like maybe not in every drawing, but there is like an obsessive nature to the way that I work with line and pattern, and I
Hmm.
like to get into like a lot of detail in the drawings. And then I also do try to like tell a story through the artwork. So I don't know if I really call it like an illustration always, but like usually there's like a meaning or something that connects everything. But yeah, I've been making art for my entire life. I don't really remember a time where I wasn't art making. My mom, is a painter. She loves to create art. I grew up, drawing with her at the kitchen table, and
Yeah.
my dad also like is, like, maybe like where like some parents kind of discourage their students from, going into the arts or like doing more creative things. My dad was all about it. He really was like more blue collar as far as like what he did for a living. Like he worked at
Hmm.
General Mills where they make cereal, and like I actually worked there for a little bit too. It was amazing.
Okay.
It was really a fun job. But he would bring home like boxes and like different art supplies, and we'd like make forts together and like construct
Okay.
different things. So
Love it.
yeah, I just kind of like spent my childhood like making art. And honestly, there weren't many kids in the neighborhood at that point. It was like kind of an older neighborhood, and I didn't have
Hmm.
any siblings, so that's what I would do. I would just make art. And
Yeah.
I remember like going to my grandparents' house, and like this is of course before like cell phones and video games, and
Right.
there was a different world, so
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
you had to find a way to entertain yourself. So I remember like just going through the encyclopedia and like picking, 'cause they had like like encyclopedias, like physical, A through
Yeah.
Z. And I just remember like looking at the illustrations and then
Hmm.
finding like a word, then drawing what I thought it meant. And that was kind of like my childhood. And then when I actually started to go to like school, like elementary school, I actually was incredibly quiet. Like I don't know. I just could not talk to people. I could not use words for whatever reason. And really like I would rely on drawing. Like I'd almost say like as a way to communicate with other
Yeah.
people, like that was more my I don't know, maybe a coping mechanism, but it was a way that I
Okay.
found a place with my peers. So yeah, so I've been drawing my whole life.
I love that. Well, and you talked earlier about, teaching for a long time and starting to feel old. And let me tell you, man, like encyclopedias on the grandparent shelves, like that, I did the same thing, and that makes me feel old. And I know that everybody in their mid-20s listening to this are like, what are these guys talking about? But it absolutely was a formative experience to learn about things through that. And like you said, get inspiration through some of those drawings, illustration, the photos you see in there. And it was an incredible world to explore. So
I mean,
I,
I remember like just wanting to get an encyclopedia so bad, because that was like the internet, and I'm like, I
yes,
can see the
yes.
whole world is in these books. But yeah, things definitely shifted. In fact, I don't know how kids do grow up now. Like, I mean, I know how they grow up, but like, I would not want that. Like that immediate gratification and all that access. Like, it's got to be so overwhelming, you know.
Well, it's interesting because, you talked earlier about how if you're offering kids choice, the shift there is when they start to become curious about things, when they start to explore on their own. And that's a great way to learn. And, I always think about that as I see my own kids grow up. They don't have to be curious, they don't have to wonder about things because every answer is at their fingertips. And it's just a shift. It's a different way for them to learn. And I don't know that, I've been able to wrap my head around that entirely or know exactly how I feel about that, but I've definitely noticed it's very different. And that curiosity is not there because every answer is at your fingertips and you don't have to wonder anymore.
I know that it's strange. It's like here you're given this like how to put it like this incredible power, right? To like learn about anything, know about anything, be
Hmm.
anywhere. I mean, it's incredible. And yet it's like it almost becomes because it's so easy, maybe, or because you know that it's always available. So it loses like some of its value. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
kids don't they don't yeah, they're not they don't seem to be quite as curious.
Right.
You
Well, and
know?
I think you don't appreciate it as much because you haven't known anything different. And so it is, like you said, a different way of thinking, a different way of looking at the world. So, I was gonna say, bringing back to your art though, I wanted to ask you, like for you personally, art has always been a part of your life, obviously, but why is it important for you to kind of keep on with that, to keep creating art? And a second part of that question is how much of that like comes into your classroom, that idea of continuing to make art or continuing to create, how does that affect your teaching or how you interact with students?
Well, I think for one part, like I do find like comfort like in art making, and
Mm, yeah.
and maybe it's part because it's something that like I feel good about, it kind of is like almost like a part of my identity,
Yeah.
like a major part. And I remember my first year teaching and just feeling so incredibly overwhelmed day to day, thinking like, I don't think I can do this,
Yep.
like I'm just being nervous and like just struggling. And I was doing a study hall, and I'm this sounds silly, but I remember looking at this room, and there's like 50 kids in there, and they're all like seniors, and I
Hmm.
felt really like intimidated, like I'm looking at
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
like like basically adults, and I'm
Right.
I'm
Right.
I'm not that much older than them at that point. I was like
Hmm.
22, and I'm like looking around like, oh my gosh, and I have to like get these kids to like be quiet and work on things. It was a bit of a train wreck, like not gonna lie. But
Yeah.
I think I remember it was like eighth hour, and I finally was like, I need to like work on something. Like I need to work on some art making. And I was just out of college. So like in college, I as we do, like explored a lot of different medias, painting and
Yeah.
drawing and pastels and photography and all kinds of different things. But ink was always something that I really like connected
Okay.
to. Like that's what I would
Yep.
do when I was like in, middle school and high school. And so I got some paper, got an illustration board, and I just had like some ballpoint pens with me, and I just started to draw,
Yeah.
and I remember like the kids would like kind of hover around. It was just like a
Come see
study
what you're
hall.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't like, I mean, it was just a study hall. It wasn't like I was teaching, but you guess you kind of are teaching still, and like
Yeah.
I was just, working on this drawing, and I still have that drawing. It's up actually up in the hallway of our
Nice.
school. The other teachers I don't think know the story behind it, but like
Okay.
that was like the first drawing I made as like a teacher, and I really liked that. Like I really liked like having that be like the conduit in which I communicate with people or
Yeah.
connect with these students. And like in the classroom, I do think and I don't want you to think I'm like drawing during class time. Like there's just is not time to be doing that. There's like way too many other things. I hear about teachers and I've always wanted this where I could just create alongside you. And I'm like, boy, that has never happened. Like not once. Like even on like an AP workshop where it's a Saturday and I'm in there of my own like free will for like,
Yeah.
5 hours or whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna bring a drawing. You're gonna work. I'm gonna work. It's gonna be great. And then I end up not being able to do that. But lots of questions and me trying to open doors and find
Yep.
things for kids.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I do think though, whether it's like during passing periods or before or after class or during your lunch, like if the kids see you making something, I think they see that you like believe it, right? Like that's
Right.
part of you, that's something that you care about. And I think that they can kind of identify with that. A lot of those students might feel the same way, and they might feel like, oh, you're almost like you're a peer in a different way, like, I'm on this same journey that you are to create things and make things. And honestly, I think sometimes the students might see what you're working on and they might, emulate that or, get
Hmm.
inspired by something that you're making. Not an
Yeah.
assignment necessarily, but just like
Right.
things they're doing on their own. But I feel the same way, like when I'll see students, especially like in the drawing classes where they're like, coming up with some ideas for a drawing that they're doing. And I'm like, oh, that's a good that's a good idea. Actually,
Might be worth exploring. No,
I'm gonna
it
steal that
just
idea someday.
yeah. No, it sparks that curiosity that we were talking about, and that goes both ways. They see things that you're creating and that may inspire them to explore something in their sketchbook or try something out in their next drawing. And same thing, like you will see kids come up with stuff. You're like, I never would have thought about that, or like I never would have tried it that way. But though you can see that there are value in those ideas, and it may lead to something down the road for you too. And so I love how that can go both ways.
Yeah, I do. I feel a little bit like a creativity vampire. I go in and I'm just feeding on what they're doing. Like, oh, that's a good idea. I like that one too. But you know what? I think and I hope that that's like a mutual thing.
Yeah.
That we're in this like you know relationship where there's a give and take and like
Hmm.
I'm getting inspired by you and you're getting inspired by me. I think that'd be like it's like ideal if you can achieve that or at least
Yeah, absolutely. Um, the next thing I wanted to ask you about, though, you're talking about how, not enough time in class to create a lot of your own work, obviously, because there are so many teaching things going on. And I think we all feel that way. And a lot of times, there's just so much going on that we can get burnt out by our teaching. And so it's difficult to find time to create work. So I wanted to ask you, like, What does art making look like for you? Like when are you finding time? How are you creating time? And what are you doing when it's time for you to create your work?
Well, I do have to say that there is something nice about the classroom. I have big
Mhm.
tables. There's
Yeah,
art supplies everywhere. I do like working there. And a lot of times it might be something where I just stay after school a little bit extra to work,
yeah.
or during lunch or before school. Not normally before school, because honestly, like these days, I, I'm not in the mood. I mean, I need
I'm
a
lucky to
lot of
get there
coffee
on
to get
time, much
started, and
less
like
like
yeah, but I do like, I mean, it does like calm me when I'm making art, so it is kind of
hmm
nice if I was going to do that. But yeah, at home, I make art as well. Like a lot of times it'll just be like in a more comfortable setting where maybe I have YouTube playing or Netflix playing, and it just kind of goes
Yeah.
in the background. And probably like what a lot of artists are like, I do work pretty well in the middle of the night. Like I
Okay.
feel
Yep.
like
Yep.
that's like a good place for me, and I think maybe it's because the world is asleep, like it's like everything's dark. If you, especially like growing up, everybody's in bed, so I can kind of just spend some time like in this like prolonged state of focus.
Yeah.
Maybe you
Yeah.
have like some music playing, or I actually don't like to listen to music when I'm drawing. I
Oh,
actually
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I know a lot of people do, and I used to, but I started to get kind of bored with that, and I actually like to listen to like talk radio.
Oh,
Um,
you are an old guy at this
I
point.
know,
Like,
just like
let's be
hearing
honest.
people talk. I mean, I love that, like, and like you're hearing about new things. It's not like, I don't know. I think I got like, I was listening to one of the Pink Floyd albums, and it was like on a
Yeah.
loop, and it was about the third or fourth time that this thing had looped, and I'm like, all right, I'm done with this. Like,
Need
not going to
need
change.
something
It's
new.
the
Yeah.
same thing over and over again. It's like I'd much rather hear people like talk about world events, or other
Okay.
things, and
Yeah.
so like I do think that it's kind of a fun place. Now, I also don't have a family, so like I mean I have like my parents, but I
Right.
think that does give me a little more time to work on those kinds of things. But
Yeah.
and I think too, the more you're like plugged in to the art community, like if you're got a show coming up or someone commissions you for something, or maybe you like to get those likes on Instagram,
Yes.
that like, that kind of motivates you. It kind of locks you in.
hmm
And to the point where it's like, well, I have to keep making things.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I actually wanted to ask you that though, because I know that that helps sort of the creativity flowing and it keeps your work coming. But I know, like every artist, there are times when you get stuck, you have a creativity block or just have struggle getting back to work. So I wanted to ask, like, how you work through those. Like, if there's a creative block, a mental block, or even like physically, you don't want to do those work. Like, what do you do at that point? Like, are there strategies you can share with people on how you get through those creative blocks, or how you find the time or the energy to kind of keep going?
Yeah, and I think first you have to kind of identify what the block is, right? Like,
Yeah.
like what's the challenge that you're facing? And
hmm
if it's an idea thing, where you just can't come up with an idea. And by the way, like I'm a procrastinator, like a big time
Uh-huh.
procrastinator. But I will just say it's hard to come up with ideas under pressure. But I don't think procrastination is that though. I think it's you're kind of chewing on the idea. You just
Okay.
haven't quite gotten started with it yet.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll
Yeah.
come together. Probably my favorite thing to do in all truth, to come up with like ideas, like if I'm like just blocked,
Yeah.
is to mow the lawn. So I
Okay.
I go out and and for me, like taking a hike isn't the same thing. Like I need that repetitive
Yeah, just
back and forth.
back and forth. Yep.
Yeah, just like you're watching the line, and like you're focused, but it's like a certain part of your brain that's like keyed into that, right? And
Okay.
like
Yeah.
it's the part that like, keeps your body level and you're moving forward and you're, like
hmm
focused on this task. But while that's happening, it's like that. that other part of your brain is just like going crazy. Like, and also
Yeah.
I would recommend not to listen to music. Like there again, like I feel like if you just have like the hum of the lawnmower,
Hmm.
that allows your brain to just kind of travel in all these different directions.
Okay. Yeah.
Driving too, though, like I actually, and this again, it's gonna sound so weird. I don't listen to anything now when I'm driving.
Okay.
Like I went from music to talk radio to silence, and I actually prefer that now. Like I kind of like driving in quiet, and I'm just thinking and
Lets
reflecting.
your brain wander.
Yeah, and I think like for like creative like for like idea building. So like if the block is an idea block, maybe that's what you need to do. Like you got to get out of this area where you're like overstimulated, do
Hmm.
something mundane, and then
Okay.
let those thoughts like percolate, Now if it's like you're overwhelmed to start something, like it feels big or you're just
Right.
procrastinating on it, that's different. Like you might have the idea, but maybe you just don't have the will to like start with it. And I think in that case, it's good to have like some small victories,
Hmm.
like maybe a smaller drawing that you start with or a
Yeah.
smaller task that kind of build that confidence to like move forward.
Yep.
Because I know I've had it where it's like there's something that's like feels kind of overwhelming to me to start. Um, and I'm kind of dragging my feet, and then having a few like smaller things that I do first to kind of like warm me up.
Yeah. Some of those easy wins can be
Yeah, like some
worthwhile.
easy wins just to kind of build up that confidence. And then I think too, like sometimes, I mean, like, and it's hard to get to this point where you just like jump in. But I work with ink. I had a pen around here somewhere. I was gonna pull it up. I work with ink though, and one thing about that, and I think this is like a confidence builder, right? Is that with ink, there's like no erasing, so you just have to kind of
Right.
make it work. And and the thing that I kind of always hate about pencil, well, first I hated how it would smudge. Like I hated that gray
Okay. Yeah.
smudged, like you'd lose all your contrast,
Right.
get it
Right.
on your hand here, And but it would just become this like I remember like very like distinctly like just putting a line down and then erasing it. Putting a line,
Hmm.
oh nope, that's not right. Boop. And then I think because you can edit, you get stuck in this loop of like not starting because you continue to like self edit and it like
Yeah.
erodes that confidence, because it's like, well, no, I'm not
Hmm.
sure if that's how I will. Maybe do this over here. Oh no, it doesn't look right.
Okay.
Whereas
Yeah.
like, when you're working with ink, it's like, no, that's it. That's what you
Yeah.
got.
It's
Keep
there. It's
going.
permanent.
Yeah, and then I think it does teach you like resilience, and I think it teaches you to kind of make do with what you have and to
Hmm.
embrace those mistakes. And
Yeah.
sometimes you might actually have something better that comes out of that, And I feel like there's like some life lessons there
Yeah, I
to
think
go
so.
along
I
with
think
ink.
so. Well, that's good. Now, one last question for you before we let you go. I want to hear about your Art Ed Now presentation. You're going to be talking about why art is the most important class. And I love that message. And I don't want you to give everything away for the conference, but can you give us just a quick overview? Tell us a little bit about what you're going to be sharing with us in your presentation?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think probably the main idea. And we were talking about like different art classes earlier and like what we value in teaching. And creativity is definitely the thing that unifies or should unify like all the art classes, right? Like you want these kids to think in different ways. You want them to like interpret, you want them to like connect things, make understand, make something new from things that maybe are already there, like piece it
Yeah.
together. And I believe that all domains of teaching involve creativity, whether it's math or
Mhm.
science or English, it's just that you have to have different levels of understanding to really get to that creative level. Like when I think about like math, right? I'm not good with math.
Yeah.
Just to say that straight up. I know that's probably like a shock to you. But like I think one of the problems I had is that like we're all these like formulas and like these equations. Like, you know what? It doesn't mean anything to me, right?
Right.
Now, the thing is math is actually incredibly meaningful. I mean, it's the language of the universe. You know, people have
Yeah.
discovered, you know, I mean, you've discovered like the breadth and scope of our universe through math. I mean,
Hmm.
it's a majorly creative thing. It's just that it's such a long road to get to that creative point. Like that's like climbing Mount Everest where it comes to thought, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas and I think art in some other subjects too, it's a lower entry point, like a lower floor for like that creative development. So like, you know, like with art, I mean, you know, little kids, you know, make art when they're growing up, right? I mean, like you can pick up a pen and start drawing something. It may not be the best, but like you're growing with that. But the
Yeah.
beauty of it is that, you know, if you're going to be building creativity, you don't really have to necessarily have a whole lot of skill, and there doesn't have to be a whole lot of teaching or learning before you can start making something. And
Mm.
you can, you know, now as far as like where it goes, well, it's infinite, right? Like you know, it's a very low floor, high ceiling kind of subject. So it's like,
Right.
you know, the sky's the limit, you know, like you can take these like simple things and just keep playing with them and, you know, thinking about them in different ways and keep exploring while you know learning more about art making and techniques and
Hmm.
processes. So like I think that to me is like the real beauty importance of art is that it allows kids to start playing creatively um at an earlier stage so that later stages they have that creative thinking, you know, like I wouldn't want to have to wait if I was gonna like if my creativity was gonna be found in math. I wouldn't want to wait until I've solved all the world's formulas before I can start making my own. Like you got to be creative before that to have the right
Yeah.
mindset to do that, you know, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. I don't know if that was like
It
kind of
does. It
confusing,
does.
but but that's like
No,
the
I
gist of it, you know.
Yeah, no, I think that's really well said, and I think that's an idea that's worth exploring and worth thinking about for us as art teachers. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you put together for that presentation, how you dive into that a little bit more. So, Hodge, thank you so much for joining me on this. It was great to talk to you. Great to finally have you on the podcast, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the conference here soon.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. And thanks again for inviting me. And I'd be happy to do more in the future.
All right, sounds good. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
That is going to be a wrap on my conversation with Hodge. Thank you, Hodge, for coming on. That was a wonderful conversation. I wish it could have gone a little bit longer because I think there's so much to think about in what he had to say. The way Hodge talks about student choice, the way he thinks about creativity, just the idea, you know, that it's something with a low floor and a high ceiling. And it's something that I'm going to continue to think about. And, you know, those are the kinds of ideas that stick with you. Now, if our conversation today got you excited to see more of what Chris is doing, make sure to give him a follow at CJ Hodge Art. You know, his drawing, his work with pen and ink is incredible. And I think seeing it will give you a little bit more of an appreciation for everything that he talked about today. On the other end of the spectrum, if you want to hear him dig even deeper into why art is the most important class, we would love to have you at the Art Ed Now conference. It's going to be July 31st, August 1st, and August 2nd. The Now conference, as you probably know if you listen to this podcast, it is a huge virtual conference specifically for art teachers, and the entire 3 days are packed with practical and inspiring sessions from art educators across the country and people who are passionate about art teaching and they are ready to share what's working in their classrooms. And we will have some art making on Friday night with Hodge and with Sarah Krajewski. The main event on Saturday has so much for you to learn from, and we have asynchronous learning on Sunday, August 2nd, that will be ready for you then and also available to take with you throughout the year. So If you are looking for that hands-on art making experience, or if you're looking for a chance to connect with other art teachers, or just some creative energy that will send you into the school year feeling recharged, feeling inspired, or if you're looking for all of those things, okay, we have them. Okay, all of the above at the Art Ed Now conference. You can head over to theartofeducation.edu/now to register. It is a conference that you will not want to miss. We are hoping that we will see you there. We are so glad you joined us for today's episode, and we hope it was helpful for you. If you know someone else who might be helped with the information in this show, we would love for you to share it with them. We also appreciate all the ratings and reviews that listeners leave for us, so if you have a few seconds to give us a 5-star rating or even leave a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen, we would love to see it. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you next week.